So first of all, we need to define the attributes that we would be looking for in a Jackson alternative. Being able to drop off from the forward line and link play under pressure with their back to goal is crucial, and so technical ability, specifically 1 and 2 touch interplay and ball control, as well as speed and ball carrying ability to be able to turn when the pressure isn't there in order to drive the attack forward. And two players who I think could be good stylistic fits for this deeper lying forward false 9 kind of role, depending on the setup of the other players around them, are Nice's Evan Gessard and Atalanta's Charles de Ketelaere. De Ketelaere and Gessard both fall into the category of players that I would describe as hybrids. De Ketelaere is a hybrid between a striker and an attacking midfielder, whilst Gessard is more of a winger-striker hybrid, which I'm going to show you in this video both from the eye test and the statistical analysis. See, both players have the ability to drop off from the forward line, receive the ball to feet, and either play efficiently with 1 and 2 touch bounce passes either side or backwards, or get the ball under control before turning away from the pressure to drive forward. However, this is where we see the stylistic difference between the two, as whilst De Ketelaere does this for his close control and quick footwork, using his 6'4" stature to hold off pressure, or even looking to use his body weight to roll the defender, Gessard, being more of a winger, has an electric natural burst of acceleration that we also see from Nicolas Jackson, being rapid when running or driving with the ball at his feet. But Gessard's game isn't solely reliant on his pace, as he's also very good technically, allowing him to operate effectively when dropping off into congested central areas. But before I get into that, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. They've got a variety of different current season and retro jerseys, including the new Manchester United releases for the upcoming season. They sent me over these 2 retro shirts, a Manchester United white 2006 away shirt with Ronaldo 7 on the back, as well as this Anelka PSG shirt from the 95-96 season. If you use code Atlantis at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comments section below. Despite Evan Gessard being more of a natural winger, ranking in the low to mid 90th percentiles for most of his dribbling and ball carrying metrics, as well as the 86th for his dribble success rate, De Ketelaere's technical ability and fluid body movements are able to make up for his lack of pace in comparison, as he also ranks in the mid 90s for his progressive carries and dribbles, alongside the 87th for his carrying frequency and dribble success rate. But what is quite unique about Evan Gessard is that he resembles a natural winger even when it comes to beating players in central areas, able to stand them up before accelerating past them with a dribble, or breaking ahead of them when looking to receive a 1-2. But what makes Gessard stand out is that unlike a lot of wingers under the age of 25 who struggle centrally without as much space to drive into, the Nice man is very Ademola Lookman-like in how efficient he is with the ball at his feet, not overdoing it, keeping it simple, but being highly effective and direct. Against deeper defensive shapes during settled possession, De Ketelaere is probably going to be the more effective of the two, with his physicality enabling him to almost function as a traditional target man when receiving passes into his feet, but simultaneously having the footwork, fluidity, vision and passing ability of a traditional number 10, making him very similar stylistically to a young Robin van Persie at Arsenal. On the other hand, Evan Gessard, whilst not as physically imposing stature-wise as De Ketelaere, is still quite tall at 6'2", and he's more than capable of not being dominated in a physical battle with a centre-back, although he is a lot more effective on a quick transition, having the same, if not greater speed when carrying and running forward with the ball than Nicolas Jackson. And at this point in time, I think you could definitely argue that in terms of end product and chance creation, Gessard has better composure, decision making, decisiveness and execution in the final third than Nicolas Jackson. Alternatively, De Ketelaere is a lot more similar to Xerxes, being more of a playmaker than a direct runner, dropping deep and floating into the right-sided half space, wherefrom when he receives the ball to feet, rather than with Gessard where he'll look to drop a shoulder and dart past a defender, or exchange a series of short and sharp passes looking to break ahead of the ball, De Ketelaere is more likely to be the playmaker threading through balls and incisive passes, or particularly from the right side delivering curling and swinging crosses from these narrow positions. When looking at both players' key metric circle charts, we can see that De Ketelaere ranks incredibly highly for his progressive action rate and his deep completions, which alongside his expected assist rate ranking in the mid to high 90s as well, shows that the Belgian is one of the best playmaking centre-forwards in Europe statistically, which primarily is down to the fact that naturally he is an attacking creative midfielder rather than a centre-forward. However, as I'll come on to in just a moment, I think his skill set as a whole points to a player who could develop into an elite level striker outright. In comparison, Gessa doesn't rank as highly as De Ketelaere for his ball progression or his chance creation metrics, but he's certainly still putting up impressive output, sitting around the 80th to 85th percentile range, but not as high as De Ketelaere, who's sitting in the top few percentiles. Although Gessa does rank higher for his goal scoring metrics, recording a higher non-penalty goals rate, which is due to him overperforming his XG in front of goal last season, whereas De Ketelaere in Serie A last season marginally underperformed his XG. However, despite Gessa ranking higher for his non-penalty goals, I do think over the mid to long term, De Ketelaere will prove to be the better goal scorer, and there are a few reasons for this. First of all, whilst this season Gessa has been excellent at getting into high-value goal-scoring positions, usually through bursting in behind the back line into a 1v1 or coming round the back post to meet a low cross across the box. Unless he's able to increase his non-penalty XG, I don't see his non-penalty goals rate sustaining, as from his FB Ref report we can see that whilst over the last 365 days, he overperformed his XG by 0.07 per 90 and 0.1 per 90 in Ligue 1 specifically. In the Europa League this season and Ligue 1 in 23-24, he significantly underperformed his XG by 0.10 or more, and when we compare both players using solely goal-scoring metrics, we can see that De Ketelaere actually records more touches inside of the box, a higher non-penalty XG per shot, and is also scoring headers at a slightly higher rate. Now from the eye test, I think Gessa is slightly better at getting into these high-value goal-scoring positions, with his speed being the key factor that enables him to do this. However, De Ketelaere's higher technical ability makes him significantly better when it comes to manipulating the ball in tight areas in order to work shooting angles in and around the box. And when you look at some of De Ketelaere's goals, I think you can see the resemblance in shooting technique with someone like Robin van Persie, combining textbook efficiency alongside elegance and power. Now don't get me wrong, Gessa's skill set is very good all round, also being an aerial threat inside of the box from crossing situations, but I just think De Ketelaere's stature and physicality will make him a more frequent scorer of headers than Gessa, particularly in the Premier League. The Belgian's shooting accuracy and finishing in front of goal of course does need to improve, but I also think just getting more shots away over time should then lead to a steady increase in his goal scoring output. De Ketelaere is definitely someone who, as a centre forward, you want dropping towards the ball to receive the ball to feet, being the main playmaker and connector of the attack. Whilst Gessa maybe not to the same level as either De Ketelaere or Jackson, he is still highly competent when receiving the ball with his back to goal, and his ability to turn with it and drive through the centre of the pitch is a hugely valuable skill, which shows the benefit of having hybrid players, because most central attacking players aren't going to have the turn of pace or the speed when carrying the ball forward that Gessa possesses. However, I do think the Nice man is most effective when he's making darting runs from out wide in behind the back line, and so whether he was brought in to play as the centre forward or in one of the two interior forward positions, I think he would benefit from a more fluid role in the United attack, where maybe he and Matheus Cunha are able to alternate who's dropping deep to receive the ball to feet, and who is then pulling out wide to the left to then provide a diagonal movement between the opposition's centre-back and full-back in order to provide movement in behind. Charles De Ketelaere strikes me as the sort of player that Arteta wishes Havertz was. His vision and creative passing is a level above Havertz in my opinion, allowing him to produce high chance creating and ball progressing output, and given that he's still only 24 years old, I think as he passes 25 and approaches his late 20s, we'll see him gradually develop into an elite level deeper lying forward. Someone who is able to aid ball progression from the middle to the final third, is a high volume creative threat when in the final third, but he's also able to arrive late in the box in order to finish first time, maybe from a header, or when manipulating the ball quickly in order to open up a shooting angle. Gessa I'm not yet 100% sure on, as up until this season his goal scoring, particularly his finishing output, was not at the same level as we saw in 24-25, and with his underlying goal scoring metrics such as his non-penalty XG, non-penalty XG per shot, and headers scored, all being around the same or lower than Charles De Ketelaere, I think Atalanta's Belgian is a level above, primarily because of how complete his skill set already is, but also because even though you would say that his goal scoring is the weakest part of his game, he's still ranking around the median for his non-penalty XG and non-penalty goals. but he's also producing elite level ball progression and creative output when compared against every other striker in Europe. I think if De Ketelaere was to be signed this summer, he'd come in next season for United as an improvement on Xerxes, and whilst he's not yet at the elite level or even going to be the main goal scorer in the attack, with Mbeumo and Cunha taking advantage of his deeper movements, which I think would work well stylistically, I think overall he would improve United's possession system significantly, and within the next 2 to 4 years, I think he has the potential to reach the elite level, adding goals into his game, being able to consistently pick up 13 to 15 Premier League goals most seasons. I think £38 to £43 million is what Ketelaere is worth, and whilst I don't see Gesed on the same level in terms of current or even potential ability, for 20 to about £23 or £24 million, if it was possible, obviously with the Ineos complications in the deal, I think Gesed would be a good signing for United. He probably isn't going to be a starter in a Premier League challenging side, but he is someone who does have the versatility to play across the front line, and so he would feature and start quite frequently, being capable of playing a significant role throughout the season. And even though De Ketelaere's defensive output is still fairly impressive, Gesed is a forward who excels out of possession, particularly in the press, where his reading of the game, assertiveness and acceleration over short distances, allowing him to apply pressure quickly and also get to loose balls that other forwards wouldn't. And we can see this as he's winning defensive and aerial duels at a rate that sees him in the top 15 to 20% of all strikers in the top 5 European leagues. And so in terms of his role in the squad, Gesed could be a Trossard-like signing for Amorim, someone who isn't necessarily going to have the quality to cement themselves as a starter week in week out, or even be regarded as one of United's key players, but because of his varied and hybrid-like skill set, he can offer value in multiple different phases of play, tactical roles, and against specific opponents when asked to do certain jobs. Given that Nicolas Jackson would likely cost in excess of £55 million most likely, I think De Ketelaere, if he was available for around £40 to about £42 million, would be a better alternative, and considering Evan Gesard would likely cost between 20 to 25 million, if United do sell Garnacho for a big fee and don't end up spending as much in the right interior and centre forward positions, Gesard could be brought in as someone who could offer versatility across the front line, is competent at linking play from deep, turning and driving the ball forward, and as he's shown this season is able to not just get into high value goal scoring positions, but also take those chances when they do come his way from a variety of different positions and situations. So thank you for watching. Let me know if you prefer De Ketelaere, Evan Gesard or Nicolas Jackson. And if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. You can use code Alandis at checkout for a 10% discount. I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comment section below. And if you do want to get a 7-day free trial to check out some of the plot graphs as well as some of my articles, I'll leave my Patreon linked on the end screen now as well.